How's it going, everyone? You are listening to episode. You would think because there's only like 4 or 5 of them, I'd be able to remember. I think we're up to episode 4 of the OB broadcast. We're getting into a bit more of a consistent recording routine, and by consistent recording routine, I mean I record on Mondays when no one's here, and then I attempt to get them up Monday night. And any semblance of getting 2 out a week has gone out the window until I get a better second recording day. Or I record 2 in one day, but then I feel like I'm just rushing stuff together. I'm just trying to flesh out one podcast's worth of information over 2, and then they're not as good. So what's been going on? I was finishing the last podcast by saying your boy, and in this and every situation, I am in fact your boy. That's so dumb. I've been playing a lot of Spyro. I ended up saying that Spyro was going to be the thing that I spent the rest of my life, the rest of my natural life doing, that or until I finish the game. I'm going to talk about Spyro, and it's not what I was really hoping to say. So just to preface, I played a lot of Spyro as a kid. In saying that, the Spyros that were reignited / remastered were not the ones that I played as a kid. So I do have really fond memories of Spyro, just not these exact ones. Now that's good and bad. It's good because it's sort of like playing a fresh game in HD because I've got no, real recollection. I maybe played bits and pieces of number 1 and 2, but I never really sat down and start to finish them. So it's a new, fresh experience, but the downside is I don't have any real nostalgia for the particular stories and levels that have drawn me back. So it's really just like saying, okay, this is a franchise I like, this is a new game, let's see. It is a really great game if you like collecting stuff. And if you don't like collecting stuff, I think you're going to have a not great time. Because as an open world 3D platformer, it's fun, but like the puzzle platforming is not particularly difficult or engaging. It's basically like if Pokemon was a 3D platformer, right? You're going around collecting stuff. Each world, have you got all the dragon gems / statues / eggs? Have you got all the everything else in the level? You have? Okay, good. I had I don't want to say dissenting opinion, but my enjoyment got worse and worse as the 3 games progressed, which is so upsetting because there are very few things I've looked forward to as much as I did this trilogy. But the first game, and again, I don't want to say this as like, oh, I played them too quickly and now I hate them. That's not the case. There was a phase where I got The Witcher 3, and I got it a bit late. Quick tangent, but the way I picked up The Witcher 3 is I found a random game on a bookshelf, or on like a game shelf, and I'd never played it before, hadn't heard anything about it, but it was pre-owned. It was like 60% off, and the cover was like sort of cool. I didn't know anything about it, and I just said, screw it, I'll pick up The Witcher 3, I'm on holidays, I got a bit of money, I got a bit of time, why not? And it was the best decision I've ever made in recent history, just because it was so cheap, and it was such a random choice, but it was so worth it. Anyway, the reason I bring up The Witcher is I played The Witcher every day for multiple hours until there was nothing left to do. So it's not like I played Spyro too much and got burned out early. Not the case. Very difficult for me as a person to do unless the game is not engaging. Like if I'm having fun, I can just play it non-stop. I did play Spyro a lot. The first game, I got through all the levels. I 100%ed everything, and then I did the little post-game bit and 100%ed that. So I got 120% of Spyro the first game. I got all of the in-game skill points, and then I got all of the trophies. Second game, Ripto's Rage. I got through the entire game, 100%ed all the levels, got all the skill points, didn't get all the trophies. Then I moved on to Year of the Dragon, and I'm like maybe 10% through, and I'm just struggling. And again, like I said, it's not because I struggle with burnout with games that I find fun. It's just, man, you just collect stuff, and all the levels are like really, really similar. it's just kind of sad because I was looking forward to it so much. And maybe the reason why is because, like, my favorite Spyro game was Year of the Dragonfly, which is, slightly different. You have all these levels with, like, Hunter and Sergeant Bird, and I know you have that in Year of the Dragon, but Year of the Dragonfly, which for some reason I thought was the same thing. But Year of the Dragonfly, it's not so much you have a hub and then you go into different worlds. From memory, it's like you just have big levels and lots of stuff in them, similar to, I guess, the Tasmanian Tiger 2, Night of the Quinken, or is that number 3? I don't know, but similar in vein to that, where it's just big levels with collectible stuff instead of having home worlds and you jump in between them. I'll be honest, it's been a while since I played Year of the Dragonfly. I only picked it up like a year and a half ago on PS2 because I was going through a phase of picking up old consoles like the PS2 and the GameCube and getting old games and just reliving it because emulators are for not for me. I like hard copies of things. But yeah, so I played it recently enough that I have some memory of it, but not recently enough that I remember every detail about the game. But I did play Year of the Dragonfly quite recently, and that, I guess, is where a lot of the nostalgia was coming from, because I played that as a child and then a little while ago, and now it's in recent memory because I've been playing this Spyro. And I was looking at a couple other reviews, right? Because I was thinking to myself, surely I'm not such a cynical loser that hates everything around him. I'm just not having a good time and the game is really, really great. So I read a lot of reviews and some of them were just like, this is the best HD remaster of anything ever, 10 out of 10. And there were some that were telling the truth, where they were saying, yeah, it really follows the source material to like a fault, where it's exactly the same as the old ones, and some of the problems with the old ones have made their way through. But the overall point is that it was not a perfect game, and it was not a perfect game because it was really just exactly the same as the PS1 versions, which is maybe what you want in like a HD remaster. But in saying that, like, some of the camera issues were just not great. And I'm normally the sort of person that will just, the layout and the options you give me, I will stick with. I'm not going to change the camera from active to passive or vice versa. But the camera was a real pain. People were saying that, oh, Spyro controls so beautifully. Everything feels seamless and natural and fluid. I don't know what game you were playing, but that was not the case. I was constantly adjusting the camera, and for the first maybe hour, it felt really, really clunky. And I've played like a lot of games. You can tell when a game has really tight, smooth controls. Super Mario Odyssey, Dark Souls, brilliant examples. Dark Souls? Well, I meant to say Dead Cells. I don't know why Dark Souls came into mind, although, Dark Souls has, good tight controls. Those are great examples of games that have smooth, tight controls, things that feel fluid and seamless in your hand. Spyro was not the case. There were a lot of times where he just felt clunky. Maybe it's because it's part of the game, but there's lots of times when you have to speed round corners and you're just going too fast and it's just clunky. And maybe that's partially due to the speed at which you're going, but there are also times when you're just trying to navigate a simple area and you're constantly changing the camera and you're constantly flicking the sticks trying to maintain controls. It's just not a perfect experience, control-wise. I'm not saying by any means it's a bad game. And I say that because I've got a young sister who's like 10, 11, and she was watching me play it and enjoy it, and she's been playing it herself because thankfully there's multiple save files, and she's enjoying it. It's some of the most fun she's had since Stardew Valley. And that's great. For a kid to be able to pick it up and play it and enjoy it is awesome. That's what Spyro is all about, because that's what I did when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I picked up Spyro. I had a lot of fun collecting all the stuff. Sure, I didn't 100% all the levels, but it was just fun. The world is so beautiful. You've got all these like great landscapes. It's so colorful and vibrant. All the characters are so cool and interesting. You get to play as this, a little dragon in a world full of all the big dragons that are incapable of doing what you're doing. It's great fun for a child. And as a child, I had so much fun. And now my, sister, who is a child, is having that same fun, just in a nice HD version. It's a little sad that I couldn't share that same level of enjoyment as her, but maybe that's the case. Maybe it's just for nostalgia for adults and just a great wholesome time for kids. And maybe that's fine too. Everything else is as it should be with Spyro. The voice acting was fine. I like the voice actor for Spyro. I don't know if they retained the same one or got a real good. But Spyro sounded great. Hunter kind of sounded lame. Allura was fine. Some of the other integral characters sounded good enough. I don't even know what Sergeant Bird sounds like. I haven't even got up to that bit because I'm just so apathetic. I am. And it's really sad to say because I was so looking forward to it. I will. I guarantee that I will go through and I'll 100% all the levels and get all the trophies and finish the game and get all the skill points. But it's just, at this point, I'm only doing like 2 worlds at a time because it's just almost grating. And maybe when I get further into, the third game, because it's got some like different playable characters, maybe I'll be having more fun. But I started the third game and there was like a Spyro skateboarding level, which is not something I remember from childhood. And I'm like, dude, why? Why is this in here? I've heard people say, oh, it's cool and it's quirky and it's just different. And that's what we like about Spyro. Nah, dude. I just like running around, flaming sheep and charging Norks and collecting gems. And that's what I want out of a Spyro game. I think the other thing that I preferred about the first one, because I do think that I preferred the first one somehow, even though it was, relatively more bare bones than the others, is that while I do like games where you get power-ups and you can unlock stuff and your character progresses and learns new skills throughout the game, there was none of that in Spyro 1. However, you could 100% a level and not have to come back to it. Whereas immediately in Spyro 2, I'm like, oh, I can't climb a ladder. I'm going to have to go learn that skill and then come back. I hate that. I hate backtracking. And it's funny because Pokemon is just the biggest, oh, hey, guess what? You're the first town you're in, hey, look, there's this big lake or, this rock climbable wall, but you can't do that till the end of the game. But be sure to come back for an item that would be good at that point, but once you come back towards the end of the game, it's going to be useless. It's just going to be like a hyper potion, and you can buy them for like cents on the dollar relative to how much money you have versus how much they cost. So I'm not a big fan of backtracking, even though I love Pokemon, and that's sort of like a massive part of Pokemon. I enjoy the fact that I didn't have to backtrack in Spyro 1, and I could start a level 100% and not have to come back to it. Have you guys seen Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu? I'm not going to talk about this too much because this is what I'm going to tell you about Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu. If you have a young sibling, like I do, and have a Switch, you should get Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu. Not both, and or. But you should only get it if you both like Pokemon and get a secondhand copy that's like, 25 USD instead of paying like 70 for it. Because it is super lame. I've been watching some Let's Plays on YouTube of it. Not because I enjoy watching Let's Plays, but I just wanted to get a feel for the game as a whole. And dude, it just looks so bad. Pokemon Go is not a good game. I stopped playing just before they added second gen Pokemon, so hey, maybe this is an antiquated opinion, but the game, when I played it, was not good. It just played off nostalgia. Sure, it got you walking around and exercising and stuff, but as a game, it didn't function as a good game. Again, it's changed a lot since then, so hey, maybe it's better now. There's like, shinies and 3rd and 4th and 5th gen coming soon or whatever, so hey, maybe the game's progressed a lot since then, but the whole game was not fun. I understand Let's Go. It makes a lot of sense. Niantic drew this like massive audience. Like so many people were playing Pokemon Go. And they drew this massive audience through the app. That people that might not have actually played a Pokemon core game before. People that might not even own a DS. But because it was free, because it's on your phone, it was a lot more accessible. People remember Pokemon from like the 90s. It makes a lot of sense that they're making this super casual game that sort of blends a Pokemon core RPG and Pokemon Go into Let's Go, which is, it follows the formula of badges, gyms, Elite Four, but a lot of the focus is on like Pokemon Go mechanics, the throwing, the candies, I don't even think you can battle wild Pokemon. I think you can only catch them and battle opponents. And from the very little I've seen, it looks like catching Pokemon gets you more XP than like fighting trainer Pokemon, which makes no sense. There's nothing wrong with a casual game, but they've just brought... Pokemon is a casual game. Unless you're playing competitively, it's a casual game. And it's only gotten more casual. Like, I remember playing Leaf Green and Fire Red, which is Gen 1, Kanto, which is not my favorite gen. I'll just say that much. But I remember playing that, and multiple times I would choose a starter, and I would lose the first fight because I got crit, or, you know, my attack was lowered so much that I was doing no damage and I just got killed. It didn't happen a lot, but it happened in the past where I just lost the first fight. That's fine. But the games have gotten steadily more and more hold your hands, right? I think it was sometime around the 3DS generation when your rival started picking the Pokemon that was weak to you, not strong against you. And it's like, why? The game is not that hard. Like, within the first couple of routes, you can catch enough Pokemon that even if you've got a type disadvantage, you'll have enough dudes that you can just steamroll your opponent. Pokemon's never been super hard. You know, someone's going to make fun of me, be like, oh, you lost the first battle against Gary? Pfft, you're a loser. Yeah, that's fine. But in Gen 2 versus Whitney's Milk Tank, never lost a single fight. Because you get a Paras, and you evolve it into Parasect, and you use Fury Cutter, which is the one that gets stronger over time, I'm pretty sure. And then by the time Whitney's Milk Tank comes out, you just one-shot it. So, yeah, never had trouble with Whitney's Milk Tank. But the point I'm making is that Pokemon is not a hard game. So the fact that the 3DS ones were like super hold your hand, 3-hour-long tutorial, a million cutscenes, not very fun, was one thing. But Let's Go is just... it's too easy. I don't think it's... I don't think if you're... if you're smart enough to like turn on the game, I think you're smart enough not to lose. I think the game is too easy to actually lose a Pokemon or a fight at all. They stripped away so many core mechanics that made the game great, abilities and, you know, stats, held items, all that. And the mascots, right? Like, starters are fine and solid, and in any Pokemon game, you can just use your starter, and with enough training and grinding, you'll be able to just steamroll the game with your one starter. That's fine, but this is ridiculous. Some of the moves that the Eevee and Pikachu starters learn, just insane. Like, they're broken, ridiculously good. You know, the types of moves that, if you put it on anything else, anything half decent, would be ridiculous competitively. Like, you could not get away with it. I mean, Pikachu gets a 50 base power priority electric move that also always crits. That's insane. Could you imagine that on anything else? It would be so good. You can imagine that on like Electivire, which is not the greatest mon. It's like, what? Electivire is maybe, I want to say RU? I don't think it's NU. But like competitively, tier-wise, it's not great, but it's not like the worst thing ever. It's fine. But can you imagine if that got that? That would be insane. 100 base power. No, not 100, because a crit is 1.5. So like 75 base power, priority, electric move that it would also get stabbed from. It's crazy. So yeah, if you see someone selling a really cheap copy of Pikachu Let's Go Eevee, or Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu / Eevee, whatever. Man, what a terrible name. But if you see a really, really cheap copy and you've got a sibling that likes it, pick it up. Because, hey, all you need is a Switch to play it, and the Switch comes with 2 controllers by default, and you can play 2-player by default. Like, you don't have to do anything to have 2-player, or you could just play 2-player by yourself and just never lose. But in some of the games, you would have a situation where it was your one Pokemon against 2 of theirs, and it's the opposite in this. In this, you can always have, or nearly always have, 2 Pokemon versus their one. and it's just stupid easy. Painfully easy. But I you know what? On my notes, I didn't even plan to talk about Let's Go, but it just sort of came up. I wanted to talk about Teeprofile because I think Teeprofile is a scam. Now, I don't want to say anything in absolutes because I don't want to get sued. Who is going to see this that's going to sue me? No one. But Teeprofile, I think, is a scam. Now, the reason I have come to this conclusion is the other day I've been designing, and I say designing, I've been using Illustrator to create some shirts and get them printed. There are services online where you send them a file and they will get it on a shirt and get it to you. And I've done like 2 or 3. It's really cool to see something that you physically made on a shirt, whether or not it's your own design or just something that is super obscure. Like I've got a couple of Daria ones, like one of my favorite TV shows ever. And you just can't find Daria t-shirts officially. So, this is a good outlet to do something creative and also get a nice piece of merchandise that no one's going to get, but that's fine because you get it. So I took a picture of my shirt and I said, hey, I went to the Daria subreddit and I said, this is the shirt that I got made to order. Hey, check it out. And it did fairly well. It got like, 30 odd upvotes. I don't know. I don't really use Reddit that much. I don't know. I guess I was just seeking validation, but also it's not something anyone was ever going to pick up unless I posted it to this highly specific community. So I did want a little bit of recognition. But anyway, I posted it there, and for a very small community, it seemed to do fine. And one person commented, I don't get what this reference is, like what episode this is referencing. And I went and explained it, and that was one comment. And then another comment said, hey, where'd you get this shirt? How did it happen? And I said, I mocked it up in Illustrator and sent it to a website that prints them. And that was 2 comments. Perfectly fine. Nothing suspicious. The third comment was, hey, you can buy this shirt here. And I thought, no, you can't, because there is no way this highly specific image is being sold anywhere. And I say that because the picture was, and I'm going to have to tangent to explain, but basically there is an episode of Daria, season 5, episode 7, called Artburn. And in the episode, Jane and her brother have this pagoda? What are they called? Wow, I don't normally get lost for words. I think it's like a pagoda. The thing, we don't like really have them here in Australia, so it's sort of like an outside area. You already know what I'm talking about, but it's like an outside area. It's wooden. It's got like a gabled roof, and then you sit under it, and it's like a small sheltered. You see them in parks probably. Anyway, that pagoda, patio, pagoda. Yeah, that sounds right. Anyway, they had one of them, and it broke because it was old. And then one of their siblings comes home, because if you don't know the show, Jane and her brother live at home, and they have all these like brothers and sisters and mum and dad, but they're just never home, right? So Jane and Trent have this pagoda patio that breaks down, and then the brother, Wind, comes home and says, oh no, it's destroyed, you don't and they were just like, dude, it's whatever, nobody really cares, it's old. They said, no, this is the naming one. This is where our parents sat when they named us. So they thought sentimental value. So they thought, we got to get this fixed. Daria suggests, hey, why don't you sell your paintings? Because Jane is an artist, if you haven't seen the show. Why don't you sell some of your paintings at this upcoming fair? They go to the fair. She doesn't really sell any of her paintings. A lot of people criticize I think it's a Van Gogh that she did, but she painted it upside down because art. And this guy from, what was his name, like Gary or something, but he basically owns an art gallery. And I think it is Gary, because Gary's Gallery. But he says, hey, I recognize that the thing is upside down because art. Hey, I'm not going to buy this, but why don't you come work for me? You paint these knockoffs, I sell them as knockoffs, and then I'll give you some money on commission because it looks really good. It's a good knockoff. And she sort of mulls it over, and eventually she starts doing it, and she's making a lot of money. She starts making enough money to pay off the repairs for the pagoda. And then basically, she says, hey, I'm done. I got the money I needed. And he goes, well, why don't? Hey, listen, why don't you just do this a little bit longer. Save a bit of money for art supplies and stuff. And, once you made a bit of money, you can put it away and then you can come back, or you go back to painting your own stuff once you've saved enough money to sort of keep you afloat for a while. She goes, yeah, that's actually sort of makes sense, so I'll do that. And I know, I'm trying to get to why it's relevant. Eventually, she's painting one of these in her art class. And because she's like the star art student, right, her teacher is just sort of one of those like, yeah, you're not doing your classwork, but I know you've done your classwork, so it's fine. You can do extracurricular stuff. And she sees what she's doing. And she must sort of know the gist of what's going on. And the teacher basically says, oh, Jane, I just hope this doesn't, kill your creativity or your will to paint because you've got such a unique style. And she sort of like takes it to heart because it's good advice. Anyway, in this moment where Daria is painting herself next to Jane, who is doing one of these knockoffs, Daria says, she didn't even say anything about my horsey. And the camera pans to where Daria was painting, and it's just this sort of skeletal dog-looking horse thing. Anyway, that's what I got on the shirt. I know that was so long-winded, but it's important because that picture only shows up on screen for like half a second. And that's what I got on my shirt. And it's really, really esoteric. Like, no one's going to know that apart from people that watch Daria non-stop constantly. And I've watched it start to finish all 5 seasons like 3 or 4 times. And if I wasn't like taking screenshots of shows of things that I would find, of episodes rather, that I would find interesting for shirts, I probably wouldn't have recognized it myself. So that's why I posted it there. And that is also why I knew that shirt was not for sale somewhere else. Sure enough, I follow the link. It goes to teeprofile.com/limited edition 2 or something. And it is a picture of my shirt. The one that, I should say the picture of the shirt that I posted, the shirt I got ordered. And I didn't say it was the same shirt because it wasn't. It was my shirt. And the reason I know that is because the way I took a photo, the shirt had sort of folded over itself in a way that a portion of it was cut out. It was missing, right? It was missing the hind part of the skeleton. That is not the way the skeleton looked from the show. However, that is the way it looked at the in the Teeprofile campaign. So I knew that this person had selected the image, like saved it, got into Photoshop, just highlighted it, and then uploaded that as a separate transparent background on a Teeprofile campaign. So I go to this website and it says limited edition 2, not branded as Daria or anything. So that's already a red flag indicator. And I'm looking around, and on the home website it says there's only a few seconds left, but on the individual campaign it says that there's like 14 days, and like 12 of them had already been sold. And it was interesting because I went back to the website and I went on to a bunch of different ones that all said they've only got a few seconds left until the campaign is over, and they all had the exact amount of time remaining, and they all had the exact amount of shirts sold. I mean, like, do they think we're stupid? I mean, anybody that's using the internet long enough to be buying shirts online obviously can see that this is like fraudulent at the very least. Probably. Anyway, so I went back and I looked at the person who uploaded it, right? And it was just some dude, and I went to his Reddit profile, and it had existed for a couple of months, and the account made a couple of other posts completely innocuous, just, random things, a picture of a dog, something like that. And one comment asking about a shirt, and then the comments saying, hey, I've stolen this picture and I've put it on a shirt on a website to make money fraudulently. But the interesting thing is that was not the only Reddit account like that, because I decided, hey, I'm going to Google Teeprofile. I'm going to find any social media, any website, anything. I got nothing. There's just nothing. There's no Facebook. There's no Twitter that I could find. The only thing, I could barely find the website when I was looking for Teeprofile. What I did come across was a lot of different Reddit accounts. And all these Reddit accounts only came up when someone posted a picture of a shirt/shirt design on whatever relevant Reddit thread. So there was one for like Riverdale, and there's one for violinists. It was just like a bunch of different ones, and it wasn't the same person. It was a different person each time. And all of these Reddit accounts are, quite old, varying from a couple of months to a couple of years old. And all of them had 3 or 4 posts/comments, and most of them really innocuous, except for you can buy this shirt here, going back to a different relevant Teeprofile campaign. And just like the Daria one, they all had the exact same amount of time remaining. They all had the exact amount of people that had purchased it. And so I decided... Sorry, I should note that I got in contact with their customer support and their legal team before I did this further research. But basically, I did the contacted the customer service and said, my dudes, here is the Reddit thread, here is the campaign. It's a dodgy. It's a fraudulent. Can you take it down, or do I have to go through the legal team? And I got an automated reply because they're based in California. And so I'm like, well, screw it. If I'm going to be waiting overnight for a response, I'm just going to send one to the legal team as well. So I did that, basically said the same thing. Here is my Reddit thread. Here is the post, and here is the campaign. Looking mad fraudulent. Anyway, the next morning I woke up. Mind you, this is after I'd done further research on the facts that this website is probably shady. And they, both of the emails said basically the same thing. Sorry, they basically said, oh, we took it down. But they were phrased in the exact same way, like verbatim. So, it's just really, really shady. I think the fact that, and what I'm interested in is whether or not these Reddit accounts are like set up by these people to go out and look for shirts, or just isolated images that can be put on shirts. Because from what I found, they only seem to target Reddit posts, and only ones that had shirt or shirt idea or shirt design in the title. So maybe there's some algorithm to it, I don't know. Or it would be interesting to know if they sort of hire people to make these accounts and keep them active for a little while, and then, take an image, put it in a Teeprofile campaign. Just really, really dodgy. Again, I can't say for certain that it's fraudulent because A, I don't want to get sued, and B, I don't know for sure. However, the simple fact that they, upon my request, they took down the campaign immediately, that's one thing. Like, there was no, hey, can we get some further information? Mind you, I did have ample information, but there was no further process. All of the campaigns say a few seconds left, but when you click on them, they say they got 14 hours left, or a multitude of hours or days left. They all say they've sold the same amount. It just doesn't add up. And if it does add up, it adds up to something that is probably sort of dodgy. And you know what? The thing is, I don't know if this is common knowledge or not. I don't know if you're listening and going, dude, you serious? Everyone knows that Teeprofile is like fake. I don't know. Maybe this is common knowledge and I just didn't know about it. But maybe it's not. And if it's not, I just thought it would be worth talking about because it's something that affected me. I made another t-shirt. This was more sort of my own design. Not entirely, but enough to not get done by copyright. But I made one t-shirt, and it was Zuko from Avatar The Last Airbender. I took half of his head and put it in the rings and got a nice free-to-use font that was similar to the Daria font. And so I basically remade the Daria logo, except with Zuko's head in it. And it's cool. I mean, someone had already done it with the Diane character from BoJack Horseman, but I like to do it with Zuko. I also did one with Samurai Jack because it's a pretty easy crossover to make anything with the Daria logo. So I've sort of just been taking my favorite shows and putting the Daria style on it. But anyway, I made another one, the Zuko one that I mentioned, and I was thinking about posting it to the Daria or Avatar subreddit, and I was thinking about obscuring it in some way that made it, I guess, somewhat possible to copy, but very, very obvious and it would look bad. But then I just thought to myself, this is something that I've relatively put some effort into, and I don't know how I feel about it being put out there like that, even even if the sole intention and design is to catch out these people, I just didn't particularly feel comfortable doing it. But yeah, I was looking around and I couldn't find anyone else saying the same thing about this. And I don't know why. Do they get rid of posts that talk about it? Do they get rid of podcasts that talk about it? I don't know. It is interesting. So hey, if you are looking to buy a t-shirt from a t-shirt campaign, I would recommend, from the experience that I've had, not going to Teeprofile. I'm not saying Teeprofile is a fraudulent scam website. However, I'm saying with all of the things that I've experienced and mentioned here today, I don't think it's out of the question. And that's probably going to be the most controversial thing I ever talk about on the show. Okay, moving on. I really like the Nintendo Switch. I love it, actually. It's actually fun to play as a console. Not the games are fun, but the console itself is enjoyable to play. I love the detachable Joy-Cons. I love the way you can, put them together in a holster, or you can, get a 3D printed one that functions the same but holds your games, or, has a beer koozie in it, so you can have, you can sip your little beer or your little Coca-Cola while you're playing. I love it. I love everything about it. I love the design. I think it's sleek. I think having the ability to put on some sort of wallpaper would be cool, but I just love everything about this console. I love the games it comes with, albeit it's a very small library. I think the shape is great. It's got some great first-party IPs like Mario and Zelda. I just think it's a great console. And because of the games it's got, the games that it does have, and the fact that it's so enjoyable to play, I've clocked a lot of hours on it. I clocked a lot of hours on a lot of different games. And I think that's fine. This is sort of what they're made for. But I've been thinking to myself, games get a lot of heat. They do. People want to say gaming addiction is the next big thing next to gambling and smoking or whatever. I think that's dumb. I think people, human beings are prone to addiction. And I don't think that's the fault of the whatever it is. Because, gambling is fine as long as you do it in moderation, just like everything else is, games included. I think just humans have addictive personalities, and some have it worse than others. So I don't like when they say, gaming addiction. But what I have been interested in is developing a formula, like a maths formula. And I'm going to compare it to movies, right? Basically, what I'm trying to figure out is the value of a game, right? And the best way I could figure out is the cost of the game relative to how much enjoyment and how much content you get out of it. So I've got my Switch here with me. Here I've got a list of games. I've got Super Mario Party, 30 or more hours. Wizard of Legends, 60 or more. Hollow Knight, 50 or more. Skyrim, 200 or more. Super Mario Odyssey, 120 or more. Stardew Valley, 330 or more. Dead Cells, 20 or more. The Binding of Isaac, 305 hours or more. It's a lot of time. For a console that cost like 400 Australian dollars, I think you're really getting to the point where, hey, the money that cost you and the money the games cost you versus the amount of time you got out of it is a pretty good deal. But people are still quick to criticize it. And maybe listing the actual amount of times that I've got in it, maybe that's indicative of that. But what I want to do is take something that costs money, is a source of enjoyment and entertainment that is widely regarded as acceptable in today's society, and compare the two. And the thing that immediately comes to mind is movies, right? You can sit in a movie for 2 hours. It'll cost you 20 or 30 bucks. And that is considered fine, right? Financially speaking. I'm not talking about like, whether movie addiction is a real thing or not, right? But that is a financially acceptable decision. You can spend that much money to get that much entertainment, and that is fine. So I've got my calculator up here just for continuity. And let's say you spend $30 at the movies, which is fine. That'll probably cover a drink, a ticket, and some popcorn. And let's say your movie is 2 hours, right? That's $15 per hour. That, in my mind, is the benchmark. Anything around or below that is acceptable in terms of financial viability for entertainment. So let's take, you know what? Just for the sake of trying to be comparable, let's take Super Mario Party. Fairly new, fairly low amount of hours in it. You know, I got that for my sister's birthday and we've been playing it together. She's not played without me. I've not played it without her. It's a good game. It's a great game. Love it. And it's one of the ones that I have the least amount of time in, right next to Dead Cells. But we'll use Super Mario Party because it's a staple. People recognize the name. I've played that for 30 hours. The game cost $100, right? So 100 divided by 30 is 3.3 recurring. That's $3. Okay, unless I'm doing, because I'm not great at maths, but unless I'm doing this terribly wrong, that is $3-ish per hour of entertainment, relative to the $15 per hour of entertainment that comes from watching a movie. Now, obviously, there's some fluctuation there. You know, a movie might be slightly longer. You know, you might enjoy a movie more than the average, or a lot of those hours might have been grinding out. But for $3 per hour of entertainment, I think that's a great investment. And that was one of the lower numbers. The Binding of Isaac, I had 300 hours in. I'm not going to do the maths because I put my calculator away, but that's an insane amount of content and enjoyment that's come out of a very small amount of money. The Binding of Isaac was $60. That's less, and I've got more hours out of it, like a substantial amount more. It just gets me when people say, oh, you know, games are the worst. It's going to ruin your eyes. All this and that and this and that. And just complaining about games. And maybe it's because I'm like a person that likes to play games. Maybe I'm taking it personally. But if you're just looking at it purely from the financial standpoint, it makes a really great case that movies are not as good as games. Just because you can spend so much more time and it will cost you so much less money. I know there's other things you have to take into account. You might not always have $100 on hand to buy a game. You might not always have a couple $100 to buy a console. But you might have, you know, $20 to take your girlfriend out to the movies. And that's totally fine. I understand that it's really hard to compare two different mediums, right? You might not be in an area where there is a game store. Or you might not be in an area where there is a good internet connection where you can, you know, do all your software updates and stuff. You know, you might not have a TV. You might hate games. And these are all fine things. And movies might alleviate. You might live next to a movie theater. Your parents might manage a movie theater. You might get cheaper tickets. You might get free tickets. You maybe live in America where there's this, you know, movie service similar to Netflix where you know, pay a certain amount per month and you get to see unlimited movies, which, by the way, is a great deal. I know you have to go out of home, but it's financially a great deal. So if you have access to that, I mean, we don't, but if you do, you should absolutely use it if you like going out to movies, because that's a great deal. I was talking about it on the radio show the other day. So I understand there's, like, you know, certain variables that might impact your decision one way or another. But if you're a real thrift master and you just love getting your money's worth out of things, man, how can you go wrong with a game? Especially a roguelite like The Binding of Isaac. And I know I'm not going to go into The Binding of Isaac too much because I did last week and probably will again in the future. But it is, you know, roguelites and games as a whole, a great investment financially. I don't know if I'd recommend, I mean, there are, you know, again, there's more variables that you have to take into account. You might buy a game that is very light on content and you spend, you know, $60 or $70 on Sonic Forces and there's 2.5 hours of content and all of it's bad. And, you know, not a good decision. You might play a game like The Quiet Man, which is just not good. And you just might not, you might have a very short amount of time relative to how much you spent, or you might have very unenjoyable time, or both. But again, you could also find that in a movie. You know, you might go and see, how much have I been paying attention to movies that have recently come out? cannot remember the last terrible movie that came out. It was probably Ghostbusters, the remake. That was probably the last movie that was terrible that came out that I am actually aware of. I know there's heaps of things to take into account. And, it sort of just sounds like me trying to justify my purchase of, my Switch and games as a whole. And maybe I am. Maybe I'm guilty of that. I'm going to wrap it up. It is getting towards that hour mark, and I've been trying to keep it sort of consistently that time. I did want to bring up one thing quickly. And it's not so much a discussion point, it's more of like hey, I'm going to mention it, and I'm going to look for audience feedback. So, recently, Stan Lee passed away. Terrible, really sad. I mean, we as humans are aware of the concept of death from a very early age, and so it's not a huge shock when it comes, especially for someone who was 95, which is phenomenal to make it that long. But yeah, he passed away. It was very sad. It was quite a while ago at the time of recording this. It was like maybe a week and a half ago. And it was sad. He really made a lot of the entertainment industry as we know it, right? Because superheroes, especially nowadays, are just like an integral part of cinema, a part of movies, a part of TV shows, a part of entertainment, games, everything. And it's Marvel in particular have really impacted that. I'm not the biggest Marvel fanboy in the world. I really like Spider-Man, and I like the four Defenders. I'm not a huge fan of like Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Hulk, all of those like Avenger-y dudes, apart from Spider-Man. Sort of bore me. And hey, you might be sitting there with your cynical glasses on saying that, hey, the superhero stuff has really been oversaturated recently, especially with all of the cinematic universe of Marvel, and then DC's also trying to do their stuff, whatever. So, like, you could be understandably cynical that there has been a lot of oversaturation in the market recently, but, you can't take away from, the fact that it's brought people together that, might never have been, I've been able to sit down with my dad and watch Daredevil. And we don't have, when it comes to TV shows, we don't have too much in common. So, he'll like go to the rent box and he'll just rent whatever garbage and he'll enjoy it. And, good on him, but I can't do it. I can't go and sit like a C-grade Tom Cruise movie and enjoy it. Not a great example, my dad hates Tom Cruise, but you get what I mean. Like Daredevil, we were able to sit and watch that together and it was great fun. Luke Cage and, Black Panther, you're seeing all these like, black superheroes that are, representing a whole portion of the world that has not been widely represented in Western media, especially superheroes. I mean, there's like a very few amount of black superheroes, and to see Black Panther and Luke Cage being such huge successes and really, really popular is great. The superhero stuff is done a lot. And that's largely thanks to Stan Lee, his creation. So it's really sad. But the real thing that I wanted to get to is that I love Spider-Man. No. The real thing I wanted to get to is I saw a video recently. It was uploaded to a YouTube channel. I forget the name. It was 3 letters, like CDR, CPR, CDJ, CKG, something like that. Anyway. And the video was, I'm pretty sure it was 10 minutes long because of course it was. But it was Marvel fans react to Stan Lee's death compilation. Now, I don't know if I'm overly sensitive to the concept of death. I don't know if I'm just a cynical piece of garbage that is just too angry and too hateful of everything, but am I the only one that sees that and thinks it's really, really distasteful? Reacting, like a video reaction of you to a death is one thing. And mind you, I didn't watch the video. I don't want to give it the views, but and maybe it got heavily disliked. I don't know. Maybe it's not even up anymore. So I don't know what situation celebrities were reacting to that was filmed. Maybe it was just a compilation of screenshots of people being upset. But then taking those reactions to in some cases, a fallen friend, and turning that into I'm pretty sure 10-minute long, or it might not have been 10 minutes, but it probably was, knowing YouTube at mid-rolls. A compilation video for YouTube that was really high on trending. Does that not come off as incredibly callous and distasteful? Because I'm sure, unless they had the foresight not to, I'm sure they would have made money off of that video because it was a video that had a couple of million views from the very little that I saw. And again, unless they said, hey, all money that this video makes goes towards this charity or whatever, which is a thing that they might have done, in fairness. But it just comes off as incredibly distasteful for me. It's just low, isn't it? To compile the reactions of someone's death. I mean, I don't like compilations at the best of times, but this just seemed just wrong. I don't know if anyone's watched it or if anyone has an opinion. This is sort of the audience interaction thing I'm trying to include and incorporate. But please leave your feedback on A, the podcast, but B, what you think. Am I coming from this the completely wrong way? Is this a really good way to see how touched and moved and upset other people were? And for viewers, the average person like you or I, to find solace in that video, knowing that, Chris Hemsworth and Robert Downey Jr. were, just as emotionally broken as you and I were? Is that the purpose of it? Was the video widely hated? And, I don't know. I don't want to watch the video. I don't want to give it the views. And so that sort of hinders how much research I can actually do into it. But I would like to know what people think about this video, or even just the concept of, compiling. It's one thing to react to a death, and it's another thing to record yourself reacting to the death. Or have, something that can be compiled, a screenshot, a text, a voice clip, a phone call, anything. But then for someone else to compile deaths of someone else and then upload it for views, I'm just struggling to see any situation where that's not classed as a really scummy thing to do. If you have more information, please let me know. If you watched it and it was, like I said, a real way for you to, again, find solace in the fact that you weren't the only one that was affected, let me know and I'll address it in the next one, saying that, hey, maybe it wasn't such a scumbag move after all. But I don't know, it's something that I saw and just rubbed me the wrong way. Anyway, I'm pretty sure this is around an hour, if not an hour long, so I will cut it out here. I did have a couple other things in my list of notes that I was going to talk about, but I didn't get around to. Games Worth Money, no, I did that. Oh, the Disney's Dumbo remake. Yeah, no. I'll get into that next week. Anyway, thanks for listening. I appreciate any comment that you may leave. Please do. I will be back next time. Until then, don't text and drive. And I'm out.